Hey everybody, welcome to episode 119 of the Askdap show, where I answer your Volkswagen and Audi questions. On this episode, I talk about should you buy a V10 TDI Touareg, oil leaks on Mark 7s, selling a Mark 7 with an IS38 on it, and does a Mark 7 have a serviceable fuel filter?
Boris via Facebook says, is $12,000 for a full bolt-on IS38 2015 GTI with 48,000 miles on it and all the stock parts as well a fair asking price?
Okay, so this question was asked in the Mark 7 Facebook group, not to me specifically, but kind of just in general. And I wanted to share my opinion about it because obviously most people there would love to buy a car like that at that price. So just for context, the car that I have, the Mark 7 that we use, is just a base Mark 6 manual, 2015, 43,000 miles. We're going to be getting rid of that car for an S4 in somewhat near future. And just so you can have an idea for context, a stock version of that same car, that car put back to stock, we got a number from just a random person at 13.5 for that car. So that's going to be a number that is on a car that has slightly less mileage, but is a bone stock car, and generally is going to be assumed probably to have not good tires on it. So given that that's the case, you're almost guaranteed that in that circumstance, that car is much more worth it. Now, what I'll say is, cars like that, a car that has IS38 full bolt-ons, you have many thousands of dollars in modifications on the car. Getting that as a trade-in is not going to be something you're going to get. They're not going to value that at all. So you took your car to CarMax or to trade-in, you're not going to get that value out of your car. But if you sell it to somebody in the community, they're almost certainly going to value that, assuming it's been modified properly. With that said, you will have to be patient when you're selling that type of stuff. The one thing I think a lot of people have is the circumstance where they want to sell stuff fast, but they want to hold all the money. You have to understand that selling something private party, even at a crazy low price, you're gonna have to deal with a lot of nonsense over and over and over again. And for that reason, the knee-jerk reaction is to, let me just fire sale it and just take whatever I can for it. That way I don't have to deal with a bunch of headaches. Selling it private party, you almost always have to deal with headaches unless the first person you deal with is just a great guy who just knows exactly what he wants, he knows the car, isn't gonna spend a lot of time haggling back and forth, trying to decide whether he's actually gonna do it or not. And so for that reason, I always recommend, for most people, what I recommend to people is strip the car back to stock if you're capable, and then just go trade it into somebody, sell it to CarMax, trade it into a dealer, something of that nature, because they're going to give you a number, they're going to stroke you a check, you're not going to deal with any nonsense. If you are willing to wait for a car like that, you can leave it in the condition it's in, and then just wait to sell it. But I know this gentleman specifically, I think he was actually going overseas for military service potentially, or something of that nature, that he needed to sell the car fast. So in that circumstance, I would say probably put it back to stock, sell all the stuff, all the parts off it separately, and then just trade it in.
Clarence via email says, hi there, notice what looks like engine oil leaking between the engine and gearbox. Have you had similar observations, possibly a replacement gasket shield? Car is less than 19,000 kilometers.
Okay, so because we don't have a shop, I can't say I specifically have seen something like this, and our car does not have a issue like this, although we do have a shop coming soon. So look forward to more information on that in the near future. In regards to that, I would say it's almost certainly a rear main seal leak. I asked around a couple techs that I know. I have heard them mention that they've heard of 1.8T cars having rear main seal issues. They're basically the same setup. So it's very plausible that if a 1.8T has the same setup and a 2-liter has a rear main leak, it's very common that it could be the case. In that case, though, the good news is you're under warranty, and so if they haven't updated the seal, you're going to get it replaced and get a new seal in your vehicle, and you won't have to worry about it. I haven't heard of a ton of problems around rear main issues, but again, it has been something that's happened.
Mitch via email says, hey Paul, I'm looking at going in a different vehicle for work. Found a couple 04 Touaregs, one with a V8, one with the V10 TDI, both with right around 100,000 miles. I know these first gen Touaregs were known to have several issues. Any of these known issues been worked out over the years? Both vehicles seem to have been maintained at regular 10,000 mile intervals. Which of these engines are typically more reliable, or would I just be better off buying one with a V6?
All right, Mitch. So Touaregs, 04 Touaregs. So for anybody not familiar, 04 Touaregs was the second year for Touaregs, and 03 was the first ones. They were a nightmare. They were a complete nightmare when they first came out. They had a million different warranty problems. They had recalls and tech bulletins and blah, blah, blah out the wazoo. Most of those things would have been resolved by now, certainly. There could probably be some stuff, like the only thing I would maybe think that could be a problem is like prop shafts. Touaregs eat through tires like most European SUVs pretty regularly, so they will, if you're putting high mileage, you will probably expect to replace tires pretty often. Brakes also are reasonably expensive. Those are kind of the common things as far as stuff to look out for. There would be some common problems that may exist, but I would say any of the major scary things that happened back in the 04 days when they came out and why they got such a bad name, that stuff would generally have been resolved. Here's what I would say. If you're looking for an 04 Touareg, or you're looking for a Touareg in general, which is a later high mileage stuff, and we looked at some possibly for towing and stuff like that as a kind of a beat around vehicle to have around for us as well. The only ones I would buy a V8 steel suspension Touareg, so a non-air ride car with a V8 in it, and here's why. The V6 ones are just generally pretty underpowered. They're okay as far as reliability if they've been maintained reasonably, but they're just not very quick and kind of slow, and they're not going to have great towing ability, so if you're ever going to use it for that. The V8 was this pretty solid engine in general. That car will have a timing belt, so that's going to be something you're going to have to look out for if you're looking at a V8 Touareg of when the timing belt's been done. That is a pretty expensive service, so again, something to look out for along those lines. The V10 TDI, awesome engine. You could pull down a house with the amount of torque in a V10 TDI. They are, if you have not driven one or been in one, they are very powerful. You know, once you mash that pedal to the floor, and it's a twin turbo V10 TDI. Once those turbos spool, the thing just lurches forward, and it has a lot of power. It's super fun. But V10 TDIs are going to be extremely scary for average people to own. I do not recommend most people own a V10 TDI, mostly just, and not even that they're necessarily failure prone, because I don't think they were particularly failure prone, but if you were to have a problem on a V10 TDI, things are going to get very expensive very fast. They are not plentiful as far as V10 TDIs out there. If you do have problems with like turbos, for example, the engines have to come out. You know, there's a lot of concerns that I have for a lay person owning a V10 TDI. The only people who I'd recommend owning a V10 TDI would be like a tech who could afford the labor part of stuff if things were to fail, and you know, let's say you have 12 hours of labor on a specific repair. The parts are still going to be expensive, but at least you're not paying for retail price on labor as well. So that's kind of my feedback on that. And again, V10s generally are going to have air ride suspension. I don't know if they had steel suspension V10s or not, but I would suspect them to be kind of on the higher end because they were expensive trucks for the time. So hopefully that shares some light and gets you down the road of getting the Touareg you need.
Mark7 Black and Red via YouTube says, does a Mark7 GTI have a serviceable fuel filter?
All right, so this question was asked on a video I recently shot about Mark 6 GTI fuel filters. It was a DIY. So no, Mark 7s do not have a serviceable fuel filter. I do not know why. This is something that's kind of been more prevalent over the years, and I think I've answered this question a couple other places, maybe in the past, around serviceable fuel filters. I think on CCs, because CCs and some of the other later models do not also have serviceable fuel filters. So for whatever reason, it seems like the manufacturers have gone away from it. I don't know if that's because fuel quality has risen to a level where they feel comfortable having them basically just have screens on the fuel pumps, but that is the case, and you do not have a serviceable fuel filter on your Mark 7. Thank you so much for watching episode 119 of the Askdap Show, where I answer your Volkswagen and Audi questions. If you have any questions or comments about the questions answered in this show, be sure to leave in the comments below. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more like it.